Hi friends, welcome to episode number 6 of our Workflow Level 1 series. In this episode, we will discuss in detail about the employee hierarchy configuration for managing your approvals in Dynamics 365. I'll share you the prerequisites and the required configurations which are required to manage the employee hierarchies in the workflow editor, and probably you should trying some couple of scenarios with respect to managing the approvals based on the position hierarchy. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel D365 Talks or follow my profile in LinkedIn. With that note, let's quickly jump into today's topic. So let's quickly get into the agenda. So in the last episode, we covered about the workflow line approvals, and some of you have already started asking about how do we configure this position hierarchy for the employees in the organization, and that's what we will try to cover in this episode number 6, and then probably I'll also touch upon the approvals mobile app in the next episode. First to talk about the employee hierarchy. So in the workflow management, you can also configure using the employee hierarchy what you have configured in the positions within HR module. So probably first you need to understand about what is position hierarchy in Dynamics 365. Before getting into that, I will first try help you to understand the workflow user assignments. Then we will get into the workflow hierarchy so that it will be easy for you to understand the same. So let me get back to Dynamics 365 screen. So in the Dynamics 365, of course, we are using in this case the purchase order workflow approval. In the purchase order workflow approval, let's say once you open the workflow, then user will be able to view the workflow editor form. In this canvas, then as a user, if I get into, already we discussed about this workflow element configurations, and any of the setup, any of the step, if I go to the basic settings and then assignment, in the assignment type, so these are assignment types which we already discussed as part of this workflow series. But the one thing is which we also discussed about this workflow user, right? So if you select in the previous cases, whatever we have seen so far, we were using the user. But instead, if you are using workflow user, then in the workflow user, you have the provision to select the type of workflow user. It basically falls under 3 categories. It can be the workflow originator, or the owner, or it could be the workflow owner itself. So how do we differentiate these 3? So the workflow originator starts a workflow instance by submitting a document for processing. So if I am the originator, then I am the user who is going to the purchase order and clicks on submit button. So if the hierarchy should be based on the originator, then the originator should be selected in this case. Or if the hierarchy should be based on the work item owner, so work item owner is basically for that particular step, it's not going to consider the person who is actually submitting the workflow. Instead, for that particular step, who is the user or the owner who is assigned, so that particular step. So in this case, what I refer to is, so for example, here we can see only one step, right? So you can have multiple step as well. Let me go back. So I can bring this, I can drag and drop this step, so I can add one more step, so I can go on adding multiple steps. So for that step, who is the workflow owner, if you want that user to be configured for the hierarchy, then you want to be used, then you need to configure multiple steps, and then that particular owner will be taken. If you have selected the type as work item owner, so for that specific work item, who is the owner, that user will be used. Or if you go for workflow owner, then in this case, who creates and manages this workflow. Let's say in this case, if it is me who is actually creating and managing this workflow for the purchase orders, then it will be assigned based on the hierarchy for this particular workflow owner. But the prerequisite is, like we discussed, the user has to be configured, the employee and the worker has to be given the position hierarchy. So then only you will be able to use this hierarchy within the workflow canvas app. So I'll just remove the step for now, and then we'll keep the step as only one. And in this step, let's say if I go to the basic settings and then assignment, and assignment type. If it is workflow user, then I have to select a workflow user. If it is originator, of course it is going to go for the originator. You cannot select the users. So unlike if the assignment type, if I select the user, you can select the user, but if I select the workflow user, it will be the workflow user based on the respective steps which we have configured for the originator owner or the workflow owner. But on the other hand, if we discuss about the hierarchy, then if we select the hierarchy selection tab gets enabled. Let's get into the hierarchy selection first. So in the hierarchy type, first you need to select whether the hierarchy need to be configurable hierarchy or a managerial hierarchy. So if it is configurable hierarchy, then the used to retrieve users from the hierarchy associated to this workflow. So in this case, we have not associated any workflow. I'll quickly tell you how to associate a workflow to a hierarchy to a workflow in F&O. And if it is managerial hierarchy, then it's going to take the positional hierarchy what you have in Dynamics 365. But once if you select the managerial hierarchy, then you can also select, you have to start from whom, whether the managerial hierarchy need to be taken from the workflow owner or the originator. Originator is the one who is submitting the workflow. I typically have seen, based on my experience, that typically the workflow originator is the one which is used. And let's say if I submit the purchase order for approval, then my managerial hierarchy whom I report to will be taken for the subsequent approvals. And of course, if you go for hierarchy, then adding a stop condition is very, very important. Until what level, let's say for $1,000 to $5,000 you want it to be approved by my direct manager, and for anything which is more than $5,000 you want my super manager to be approved, or the super boss who need to approve the any spend more than $5,000. So you have to configure the stop condition as well, which is very important if you use the hierarchy selection. That's why it's thrown as an error message on the top. But the thing is, what you have to understand is, let's say if it is hierarchy, then you have the two options possibilities here. You have the managerial hierarchy or the configurable hierarchy. Let's say if it is managerial hierarchy, then let me go back to Dynamics 365. So in the managerial hierarchy, of course, I will also share the link for this document for configuring position hierarchy, because this is something which is related to HR module, which we are not going to cover extensively, but this link I will share it in the description of this video. You can understand about how do you configure the matrix or any other custom hierarchy within Dynamics 365. But to quickly touch upon, you can actually navigate to human resource, and there is a section called positions, and then position hierarchy. So here you can view the hierarchy for your organization. So this is the hierarchy which we have for the organization. You can change the hierarchy name, but you can create your own hierarchy types for matrix or project. I'll also quickly show you how do we assign this matrix or project in your workflow itself. So these are the hierarchy names which we have, workflow and project, as part of the out-of-the-box fields. But you can also create a custom position. So let's say if I go to any of the, let me go to all positions, then if I click on any user, for example, I'm not sure, let us check. If I go to view in hierarchy, then for offer, so we can see this is the hierarchy in which he reports. So if I select the managerial hierarchy, and then if offer is submitting for any of the store request for purchasing, then it will go to Renata, and then Emma, then Charlie, based on the configurations which we make. And of course, that's where the stop condition is very important. You need to configure the stop condition, without which the system will not be able to decide where it has to stop and take to the next appropriate managerial hierarchy. At the same time, on the other hand, like I said, if you want to go for a configuration hierarchy, so if I go to automatic action, let me go click on the step, then if I click on basic settings, so the other option, first option is this managerial hierarchy, that's what we saw, and then the other option is this configurable hierarchy. So if you have any custom configured your hierarchy where you do not necessarily want to follow this position hierarchy, but you want to configure an hierarchy and make sure the workflow follows the same, then if you go to, sorry, I'm in a different tab. So if you go to the so if you go to procurement and sourcing workflows, so this holds good for all the hierarchy, all the workflows, not just for procurement and sourcing. So if I go to procurement and sourcing workflows on the purchase order workflow, and you can associate or remove hierarchy at any point in time. You can associate an hierarchy, like in this case I can see the matrix and the one project. These are the hierarchies which will be followed by the system. I'll simply click on OK. So then the hierarchy will be associated for this purchase order workflow. If I want to remove the hierarchy also, I can do that. Then so this is, or currently running, the hierarchy cannot be removed. Okay, that's fine. So you can remove this workflow hierarchy as well, and then you can configure any other hierarchy for the workflow. So you have to decide first of all which hierarchy you want to use, and we have given enough briefing on how do we configure the workflow hierarchy. And then you also now understood about the concept, the differentiation between the originator owner and the workflow owner. But make sure that you configure the position hierarchy, or if you are going for a configurable hierarchy, then you have to configure it in the workflow itself, and you have to associate the hierarchy. Then only the system will follow the appropriate hierarchies to manage your approvals. So that's about a high level overview of how do you manage the employee hierarchy in order to manage your approvals. I'll strongly recommend you to try it out. I'm not explicitly giving a scenario over here. Probably I will request you to try this out based on whatever the scenarios we have discussed in the past, in the 5 episodes with respect to conditional approvals. Try creating multiple conditions in a hierarchical sequence of steps. Provide some spend conditions, and based on which you can try to test out this hierarchical configuration in Dynamics 365. So yeah, I think with that, this is a very short episode. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel D365 Talks, or follow my profile in LinkedIn. See you soon in the next video, where we'll talk about the Approvals app in Dynamics 365. Thank you.